Well, that was awesome. Wonderful. Thank you, Stephanie. I was on my way to do a debate against the president of the National Abortion Reproductive Rights Action League, NARAL, Elise Hogue, and I was with Stephanie, and it was on CNN, and I'm like, Stephanie, let's practice, ask me some tough questions, or make it some tough pro-abortion case, and I'll respond. And anyways, it's so powerful when we practice, when we learn, so that we can engage anyone, whether they're the president of NARAL or they're just a student on campus who doesn't know, and we can help persuade and convince and articulate our case for life. And also her book, you get it for free, and she's going to sign it, so get on that, because that'll be on eBay in a couple dozen years and be worth hundreds and hundreds of dollars, so get in on it early. We're very excited to have next a really important speaker, because in our activism, in our advocacy, we are often faced with challenges that aren't just spiritual or intellectual about how to communicate our case, but they actually sometimes can be legal, and they can be very unfairly legal. And I first had my experience with this when I was 18, a college freshman, and I was starting a live action chapter at UCLA, and I did my first undercover investigation of Planned Parenthood in Los Angeles. Long story short, Planned Parenthood of Los Angeles threatened to sue me, and at the time I had no, nonprofit behind me, I had no lawyer at the time, but I had heard of ADF, Alliance Defending Freedom. So I made a call, this 18-year-old student from my dorm, got on the phone with a fantastic team of lawyers, and one of them this morning you're going to get to hear from to talk about how to stand up for your rights on your campus to be an advocate for life. We're going to hear in a moment from David Hacker, who's the senior legal counsel for Alliance Defending Freedom. David is also the head of the Center for Academic Freedom at Alliance Defending Freedom. He's a dad to 3 kids, 6 months to 5 years, so he's very pro-life. He's walking the walk as well as talking the talk. And please welcome David to the stage.
Well, thank you, Lila, for that great introduction. If you see the dark circles under my eyes, it is because we have a 6-month-old at home, and he is still learning to sleep. And so I've been up quite a bit the past few months during the night. But I just want to thank Students for Life for having us here today and inviting me up here to speak. We just love what you guys are doing on campus, and I'm so thankful for each one of you who is here today and standing up for life on your campuses. I first want to take a quick poll, and sometimes I do this at SFLA conferences, but how many of you are in high school? High school students? All right. Awesome. All right, and how about college students? All right, very good, very good. Looks like we got a really good mix. So sometimes I am known for somewhat wild analogies in my talks at SFLA. Was anyone here last year? Did anyone attend last year's conference? Got some repeat attenders? Yes, good, good. Okay, so last year you may or may not remember, maybe it wasn't that memorable, but it was to me, that I made this great analogy between college and high school campuses and the Disney princess movie Frozen. Does anyone remember that? It was an awesome example, I thought, because it's a story of 2 sisters who love each other, but then they meet this individual who seems to be great at the beginning, but is kind of, let's just say, not all what he's cracked up to be in the end. But this year I have an even better analogy that I've cooked up for you, and it's something. We all know who the dark side of the force is out there, and they will be defeated. And you guys, as the pro-life generation, will see an end to abortion in America. So I'm just kidding. I'm not going to talk about Star Wars, though I would like to at some point. So if you want to visit our booth in the hallway later on. But what I want to do in the short amount of time we have together is I want to share just really briefly about some of your rights on campus. Students are often confused about when they have to do what the administrators and principals say and when they can kind of push back and say, no, you're not going to shut down my pro-life speech. And then we're going to invite up here a really special guest who I think you guys are going to enjoy hearing from. So a little bit about me. How did I get into this? How did I become a constitutional and civil rights lawyer that defends pro-life students on college campuses and high school campuses? Well, when I was in law school, we wanted to start a pro-life student group. We got the paperwork together, we filled it out, everything was cool, we had an advisor, we submitted it to the student government for approval, and they said no. Why? Why'd they say no? Well, you see, there were already, other groups that we could be a part of. You could join those Christian groups on campus, or you could, maybe we needed to have a different point of view encompassed within our pro-life view. Maybe we should have pro-lifers and these pro-aborts get together and have one group, is what they would tell me. And it was ridiculous. They essentially discriminated against my group and what we wanted to say simply because it was a pro-life message. And, I was in law school, I was trying to get good grades, and I could have just said, yeah, all right, fine, we'll just give up and I don't have to pursue it. I've got too much schoolwork to do anyways. But we didn't. We stood up for our rights. I was at a private university, didn't really have any constitutional rights, but I knew what the student handbook said. I knew my student code of conduct. And so we petitioned to the dean of the law school. And we, at the same time, got some help writing some op-eds in the local newspaper, in our local campus newspaper. And eventually the tide turned. There was so much opposition to what the student government had told me that they approved our group. And we had our first pro-life group ever at Washington University School of Law. So, that's how I kind of got my feet wet with the whole pro-life movement and learning what you students are facing on campus. And that inspired me to become a civil rights lawyer so that I could protect students like you who want to engage in similar speech on campus today. So, what are your rights? Do you have any? How many of you go to a private school? Private high school, private college? Okay, good. How about a public high school or a public college? All right, a few more. Good, good. All right, I'm just going to be frank with you. If you're on a private campus, I'm sorry, you don't have any constitutional rights. We always get this question. You just don't. The private institutions have a different set of principles that they're working by, and they actually have the constitutional rights themselves. The Constitution, remember, binds the actions of the government. And so if you're at a public high school, a state-run high school, or a state-run middle school, or a state-run college, you do have constitutional rights. But what are they in their most simplest terms? And this applies whether you're on a public college campus, high school campus, or a private one. You generally have some wiggle room on private campuses, and you can advocate for pro-life views, despite what administrators might tell you. First of all, before we get into it, I want you to come by our booth. Our booth is right out to the left. We've got a great booth there with lots of awesome brochures, including this handbook, which is called the Students' Rights Handbook, K through 12 and university. You want to come pick up one of these. It's free, no charge to you, and it'll explain in pretty easy terms, what your rights are on your campus, and can you fight back when the administrators tell you, no, you don't have the ability to form a pro-life club or whatever. So come pick this up. It's an awesome resource that each of you should carry around with you. You have a couple basic rights, though. You have the right to speak, you have the right to equal treatment, and you have the right to meet, whether you're in high school or in college. So, did anyone follow any of the stories this fall? There was a lot going on college campuses this fall. There was stuff going on at Yale. Did anyone see that viral video of the student shouting down one of the faculty at Yale? Did anyone see what was happening at Mizzou with the Black Lives Matter and the protesters, and they got the president of the university to resign? There's a lot going on college campuses. It seems like, there's this kind of debate about whether we should have free speech and what that means. And as students, you guys need to carry the torch and kind of help administrators figure that out. There's a lot of discussion about trigger warnings, warning students that they might experience something or hear something that they disagree with or that causes some bad emotive response. There's also a lot of talk about microaggressions. That's something that I might say is going to offend you in some sort of way, in a way that I didn't even realize when I was saying it. There's a lot of talk of speech codes and limiting students to free speech zones, which sound really great in principle, but are they? Are they really that great when they're limiting your speech to a zone? And I think all these things are just examples of college students and administrators really wrestling with what it means to be on campus. And really, when you think about it, a high school or a college campus is supposed to be a marketplace of ideas. You're there to learn new things, and especially at the collegiate level, you're there to kind of test ideas with each other and debate things and learn from faculty members who might have strange points of view. But you're in a marketplace of ideas, and you need to be able to share your ideas. And the fact of the matter is, despite all the talk of trigger warnings and microaggressions and what happened at Yale and Mizzou and other campuses, when it comes to the law and the First Amendment, free speech has never been more protected than it is today on college campuses. And that's thanks to the work of a lot of people that I get to work with at ADF who have fought for free speech on college campuses and high school campuses for 30 or 40 years. But on a college campus, for example, you have the right to distribute flyers without permission. They might say in the student handbook, hey, you got to get permission 4 or 5 days in advance to hand out any flyers. No, that's not true. That's not what the law says. The law says you have the right to engage in spontaneous speech. You don't have to get permission. And you also don't have to confine your speech to these so-called free speech zones, which sound really good. And if you've seen the Disney princess movie Frozen, you know that Hans is kind of like a free speech zone. He sounds good at the beginning, but when you unpack him a little bit and learn more about him, they're completely bogus. The high school and the college campus is your free speech zone. They shouldn't be putting your speech in a box. On high school campuses, many of the same things are true. You have the right to talk about pro-life issues. You have the right to hand out pro-life literature. Do it before class or after class or on your free time. Just don't disrupt the class. And that's true on college campuses too. You don't want to disrupt your classes. You have the right to participate in pro-life events, despite what the principal might say, such as the Pro-Life Day of Silent Solidarity. You need to be participating in these. And you have the right to express your pro-life beliefs, even in classwork and homework. You also have the right to meet on campus. You have the right to form a non-curricular club on a high school campus as long as non-curricular clubs are allowed generally. So if there's other sorts of clubs and stuff on your high school campus, then you have the right to create a pro-life club. Same is true at college campuses. If they allow for student organizations to be registered and official at the school, you have the right to create a pro-life student organization. The schools cannot discriminate against you because of your pro-life viewpoint or the content of your speech. And finally, you have the right to equal treatment. And what does that mean? On a high school campus, pretty simple. You got to be treated like everyone else. They can't say that, you can't meet after school on campus because you're pro-life group, even though they allow all the other clubs to meet on campus after school. That would be unequal. On a college campus, that law is pretty well settled, and there's really, most colleges aren't going to debate the fact, once they've allowed you to become a group, that you have the right to this equal treatment. But one thing they love to do on a college campus is they love to collect your money through mandatory student fees. And you have to pay these fees, and then the college turns around and does all sorts of things with the money. One of the things they do is they hand it out to student organizations. Oftentimes, organizations that you disagree with, like Planned Parenthood groups and stuff like that. You need to be applying for student fees. And I've heard countless times from Students for Life of America chapters that you're not applying for student fees because you've been told you don't qualify. You have an ideological message, or you have this viewpoint-based message. That is bogus. And I want you guys to apply for student fees and bring speakers to your campuses and hold great events. You have the right to speak, you have the right to equal treatment, and you have the right to meet. Don't forget those things. But if you have specific questions, come and get our handbook, or ask me some questions later in the day. I'd be happy to answer them. So what I want to do next is, even if you know all of your rights on campus, there's kind of it's hard. I get it. I was a student just like you, and sometimes it's hard when you're trying to have a productive group on campus that advocates your message and is effective. It's hard when the administrators come to you or the principal comes to you and says, hey, you can't do this event. Like, what do you do about that? Do you just kind of say, okay, We'll try to do something different, and we'll work with you. One of the hardest things to do, I think, as a student is to pursue your academic goals, but at the same time, stand up for your rights and stand up for the pro-life cause. And so we have a really special guest that we're going to bring on stage in just a few moments. And before we do that, I want to show you her video. It's a video that is, I think, inspiring to me, and I hope it is to you as well. It's someone who faced a lot of opposition on her own campus because of her pro-life views, and she fought back, and she won. So if we can, let's try to roll that video now.
I'm Rebecca Barnes, and I'm the Northwest Regional Coordinator for Students for Life of America. I originally came to Boise State because I was looking for pro-life students on this campus. It's what I do. So I walked into the room, and there was a group of students. They had done a good job. They had gone out and recruited, and there was this beautiful blonde student who just lit up the room, and she was like, I'm here because a friend invited me to start a club, and I need to learn how to talk about this because I don't know how to talk about it with my classmates.
I'm Lisa Atkins, and I'm a senior at Boise State University. I grew up in a non-denominational Christian home, and it was assumed that I would be pro-life or not have an abortion, but I didn't know what that meant. And then a few years ago, I just kind of jumped off the deep end in my values and my beliefs, and I remember finding myself one day driving to find the Planned Parenthood here in Boise to get the day after pill, and I could not find the Planned Parenthood. And so I was just like, well, I have to take it now or else it's going to be too late by the time I get back from the weekend. And so I ended up just driving home, and I just remember thinking to myself, how far have I come? Like, who is this person that I am?
When students go off to a college, often it's the first time in their lives where they're presented with conflicting worldviews. They meet somebody who has a completely different view of how things should be. This is critical to a young person's life in the making of an adult.
I got to the point where I just felt so numb, and there was no line of conviction of right or wrong anymore. And I just remember thinking to myself, how far have I come?
Technical difficulties. Stand by.
I'm Rebecca.
Completely different view of how things should be. This is critical to a young person's life in the making of an adult.
I got to the point where I just felt so numb, and there was no line of conviction of right or wrong anymore. And I just remember thinking to myself, how far have I come?
Why don't we just bring Lisa on up here? And she can tell her story to you right now. So Lisa, let me tell them a little bit about your case, because I think it's a really interesting one. You were a student at Boise State University, and you were a part of the Students for Life Club. How did you get involved in that club?
Well, like probably many of you, I kind of fell into it. So a friend in one of my classes approached me one day and said, do you want to start a pro-life group here at Boise State? And I thought, I have no idea what that means. I guess I'm pro-life. And she was like, come on, let's just meet, and she was really persistent. I was like, I really don't have time. I'm a pre-med student. I'm working 3 jobs. Like, I'm not the best person to ask for this. So finally she was like, come on, just meet. And I saw her every week in class, and it was like this guilt trip of like, oh gosh, I should probably just meet with her and maybe she'll leave me alone. So I met with her, and she's like, I don't want to be, controversial. All I want to do is just help women on our campus. I'm like, okay, I can jump on board with that. And she said, let's just brainstorm, right? Let's just make a list of all these things that we could do on our campus to help women choose life. And I thought, all right, fine. Maybe I'll be that silent member. We spent, I don't know how long at Starbucks sitting there a couple hours just making this huge list. We could talk to our governor. We could install diaper changing tables on campus. We could do all these things. We actually could help women choose life. And so I thought, all right, I'll be that silent member, that person who just kind of signs the paper and just sits on the sidelines in the club. Great, So we start submitting paperwork, and it's me and 2 other girls. And we find out that to be president of the group, you had to be a full-time student. And out of the 3 of us, I was the only full-time student. So guess who became president? So I had no idea what I was doing, and I just kind of got thrown into this thing and ran the group for about 2 years, and Students for Life just invested in me and provided resources and support. And I just grew so much as a leader in my pro-life beliefs and everything. And through the end of my experience at Boise State in my last semester, we came into conflict with our administration.
Yeah, and so one of the things that her group, Abolitionists for Life, did on campus was they brought in the survivors group for a display in the main quad, and you also brought in a display from Students for Life, What Has Roe Done for Us, which is a lot of bad stuff. But a great display with multiple banners and signs that really gave students some facts, some fresh perspectives, I think, that they probably have never heard before, certainly from their peers and from their faculty members. But one of the things that the administration told Abolitionists for Life was when they were reviewing some of the paperwork, I think, as you were setting up the two events, they said, well, you see, there might be some students who are offended by these pictures that you're going to be displaying or this information, these facts that you're going to be presenting other students. And so because of that, we here at the administration, we have this policy, and they always have a policy. Well, not always. I can't say they always do. Sometimes they just make it up. But this time they did have a policy. And it said that the vice president of student affairs had the right to decide that your event was so offensive that she could instruct that reasonable means be taken by your group to basically prevent people from seeing your event. And so they asked you to put up, I think, a couple warning signs around. How did that happen?
So we set up the event, and the first event was with survivors, and it was a 2-day event. So the first day, we set up the event, and we're there, and people start freaking out on campus, complaining to administration. So administration comes out, and they're like, how's it going out here, guys? What's going on? Ooh, man, yeah, people are really upset. And they kept coming back throughout the day, and they said, well, you guys you need to put up warning signs. And so I called David Hacker, I called Students for Life, I'm like, they're telling us to put up warning signs, what do we do? And so they're like, ask for a policy, right? And it took them almost all day, to the extent of the display the first day, to actually give us a policy. And they said, well, you need to put these up, or you need to take down your display. And so after looking at the policy, we determined this policy is not constitutional. This is not okay. We're being treated unfairly. So the second day, they said, well, you guys are refusing to put up warning signs. And they still, we were saying, well, this policy isn't specific to us. I mean, you're treating us unfairly. And so they're like, well, you guys you need to take down your display then. And we said, no. So we're on the phone with the lawyers, and they kept approaching us. So it was me and 5 people from administration who kept coming out. And I'm like, okay. I have lawyers on my side, though. So I'm just standing there thinking this. But it was a huge, tremendous help to have the knowledge that we have the right on campus to have our beliefs, and not just that we have the truth on our side, because we understand that abortion's wrong, but that regardless of whether people get offended by our message, we have the right to show the truth. And I think that was why it was so impactful to have, Students for Life and ADF to be there as that support system for us.
Yeah, and one of the really smart things that Lisa and her group did is once they started getting this kind of pushback from the administrators is they kept all the emails, and they recorded, when you were meeting with those administrators out in the campus quad, they video recorded that meeting and got everything on tape, which made my job a lot easier later on. And then you kind of ran into the same problem with the What Has Roe Done for Us event. And eventually they got together as a group, and they decided, we need to do something about this, because this is going to continue to be a problem. They're going to continue to discriminate against us and tell us we need these warning signs, and then students aren't going to see our speech. And so we helped them file a lawsuit, which is a scary thing. People don't like lawyers. They don't like lawsuits in our culture. I love to sue universities because they do bad stuff, and I want to protect you. But so they filed a lawsuit, which was not an easy decision, but it was the right decision. And after, 6 months or so, the university settled the case, and they took that policy out of the books. And so no more can the administrators say, hey, you got to have warning signs around your event or something like that. Because essentially what the university had done is create their own trigger warnings. They wanted to warn students about this offensive speech that was just offensive in the eyes of the administration. How did it make you feel when you were talking with the administrators on campus and they were basically like, you got to shut this down or else?
It was pretty terrifying because I was having administration at this school that I pay fees to go to tell me that I was in the wrong and that, we need to censor our message and we're not doing anything right. But then also on the other side, I'm like, well, wait, I'm being told it's okay to keep this up and we should prevent this as long as possible and we should stall. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to go with, what our lawyers are saying. And it was terrifying, honestly. Like, I've been there as a student. I know what it's like to be in your shoes and feel like you're the only one in that position. When it's you and 5 or 6 other administration members out there, the vice principal of student affairs, the dean of student affairs, all standing there telling you, you need to put your signs away. And when you're a student and you're like, okay, I've been taught my whole life to listen to authority, finally understanding that you could question authority it empowered us to stand up against administration. And it wasn't just saying, well, we just want to be, disrespectful, whatever. It was saying, no, I have the right. I'm paying to be here as a student. And the First Amendment covers me as a student with free speech and everything. And understanding what viewpoint discrimination was and that it was clearly happening in front of our faces, that was just empowering to us, I think, to understand that we have a huge support system on our side of people saying, you can do this. You can stand up against your administration. It's not easy. I will tell you that right now. It was not easy. Our friends on campus, other groups on campus, when we actually did file the lawsuit and the media went crazy, it was hard. It was just constant having to be attentive, having to understand what was going on and talking points and things like that. But just putting trust into the lawyers and putting trust into Students for Life and just letting them handle it, understanding that Students for Life and Alliance Defending Freedom, they're the experts. We deal with this every single day. You guys aren't alone in this. You're not the only student out there. And I know it feels like it when you're there on campus with administration, but knowing that we deal with these situations on campuses across the nation.
Yeah, and I think one of the really neat things is that that we love at ADF about Students for Life is we work so closely with SFLA. And we'll just tell them straight up. We'll tell students, no, you can't do that. That the administration is right. And oftentimes they are, but there are a lot of situations where they're not right. And they are trying to treat you poorly just because of your message, because they really don't want students to hear that message. So what drove your group to eventually want to take legal action? Because you had already had your events and they'd already kind of gone off pretty well. The first one, I think the second one had a weather issue. It was windy, but both of them went well. And so why did you take that next step?
Well, our group, there was a couple of people in the group we were divided on it. There were some people who said, let's just let this go. And then most of us were saying, no, I think we should push through. So it was hard because sometimes there's that internal conflict within your group. But finally, we kind of had to come to this understanding with all of us where we realized that if we let the school get away with this, if we let them push us down on this one thing, they will continue to in the future. And that's what I think you as students need to really take to heart. Because when your administration says, oh, you can't hang up those flyers, you can't reserve that table for that event, or you can't hand out flyers on your campus, you can't bring in that speaker, it's not just that one time. They're going to keep pushing you down if you don't make a stand. And the more you let them push you down, the harder it gets. Because you've let them push you down in the past, so they have all these times that they were able to get away with it. So for us, it was realizing, if we don't stand up now, it's going to get harder and harder and harder for every event and everything that we want to do on our campus. And realizing that you never know the impact that one flyer that the school is not letting you hang up could have. That one flyer could help a woman choose life. That one tabling event, you could have a girl come up to you who just found out that she's pregnant and doesn't know what to do. But had you let the administration push you down and not let you do that event, would that life have been saved? Would you have had that opportunity? And that's why it's so important to speak up and speak life and be bold. It's not easy, but it's worth it.
So do you think if you were in the same position again, you were having these events on campus and you ran into the same opposition, would you do it again personally, and do you think your group would?
Without a doubt, yes, yeah.
what was the takeaway for you personally? Did you feel like you had accomplished something? Did you feel like it was a waste of time? Do you think it was just kind of, it was interesting, have a little legal case, and that was it?
I definitely grew as a person and as a leader. The event itself, I was harassed on campus from the pro-choicers, from the Secular Student Alliance, personally. They put my personal information on a whiteboard for all of campus to see. They posted stuff on Facebook about me. I mean, I was personally attacked. And to step up against administration and have to be the strong one to lead my group at the same time where everybody else was looking to me like, okay, Lisa, what do we do now? That grew me. And it was not easy, right? To be personally harassed, to have every excuse to just give up and walk away. But that is when leaders are made. Those are the defining moments in your life when you can choose to give up, give in, or give it all you've got. And I decided it was all or nothing. We're either in this lawsuit or we're not. We're either going to be a group on campus or we're not. But there's no lukewarmness. You cannot be half in and half out. And so personally, I would not be the person that I am today as a Northwest Regional Coordinator with Students for Life and be able to lead other students to tell them to stand up against controversy had I not been able to do it myself.
So what would you tell the students here if there's something that they could take away from this time about knowing your rights on campus and hearing your story and what you went through with Abolitionists for Life? Maybe they're reluctant, maybe they are a little bit scared, maybe they want to go out there and challenge the university. What would you kind of give them as the takeaway?
I would just say overcome your fear. Overcome your fear of feeling like you're alone in it and realizing that you have a nation of other pro-life students who are doing the same thing you are, who are spreading the pro-life message and making a difference on campus and seeing lives changed and seeing lives saved. So overcome your fear and know that you have the truth on your side, you have support on your side, and use your regional coordinators. This is their full-time job. They deal with this every single day. And even more than that, I think just remind yourself why you're in it. Why did you ever get involved with the Students for Life group in the first place? Why did you ever start a Students for Life group in the first place? Remind yourself of that. Think back to that moment when you decided that you were pro-life. Why was that? Because that's what's going to get you through when things get hard. And you have to remind yourself that if you don't speak up for the most innocent among us, then who else will? Who else is going to stand up on your campus and speak up? And if not now, then when? And I think that as students, you have this amazing opportunity to be that peer-to-peer support to those women who need it. But if you let administration push you down, if you let them water you down, then how are you going to get that message out there? You have the rights to be there on campus. Use it to your advantage because your peers are the target of the abortion industry. You guys are the target. So if you guys aren't there to create that culture of life and tell people where pregnancy centers even are or what they are, how can we expect women to choose life? So if you let administration put that wall between you and your campus, then how are you going to get your message out? So that's why it's so important, I think, to stand up, rise up, speak up, and be bold about it.
And I want to be clear that one of the cool things that I love about ADF, my employer, is that I get to do all this for free for you guys. So, lawyers charge boatloads of money normally to get anything done. My family had an estate plan done. It was hugely expensive. But I get to do this for free for you guys. You don't get a lot of free legal help in life. And so if you're put in that situation, I highly recommend you get in touch with your local regional coordinator. If it's something that needs to be, put on my desk, I'll look at it and I'll give you the straight advice, whether you can have your event or you can't, or whether what they're doing to you is okay or not. And I love doing it. I love suing universities and high schools. I'm not going to lie. God made me a litigator, so I love doing that. And we win, most of the time. But we can't promise anything, but I'll tell you the straight juice as far as your rights and what you can do. And so I just want to encourage all of you that when you face that opposition on campus, don't feel like you don't have a friend. You do have a friend. We've met now. We're cool. Maybe we should take a selfie or something, and then we'll be like besties. I don't know. But
Put his number on speed dial.
right, there you go. Yeah, they have my number on speed dial. But don't forget to stop by our booth. Pick up the free Students' Rights Handbook. I'd love for you to take it. We've also got cool I Love the First Amendment buttons. So just come check us out. Would you join me in thanking Lisa for sharing her testimony?